Welcome to Relationship Mastery, a podcast for those who want to learn how to master the art of creating happy, healthy, and loving relationships. Please join me, Adey-Jones, and my co-host, Barry Selby, each Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific for a lively and informative conversation on everything to do with relationships. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Barry and I are excited for today's show. We're going to be talking about when things change. That odd phenomenon that doesn't seem to happen very often. I don't know if you've noticed.
I mean, that whole thing about, Billy Joel's song, don't go changing to try and please me type thing.
Yeah.
We have this thing about, it's almost like, don't you dare change. It's this thing about stay the same. You've got to stay locked in. You can't possibly change. So we shall explore that in this episode.
Oh, okay. So this is going to be a good conversation because I've just been through a big change. But not in my relationship. That is still steady and wonderful and fine. But just changes in circumstances in life. And I always say it's so interesting to me how, as human beings, we resist change.
Yeah.
It's just built in. And we have this. I mean, I think as a mother, when I would read a story to my children when they were little, and this is a phenomenon that is quite common with children. They want the same story again and again and again and again. And if God forbid you get bored of it and you think, oh, I'll flip over 2 pages this time, they remember everything, and they want verbatim. They want to know what's coming next. And I think about that as human beings. We have this sort of habit. I always say that, we want to be entertained, and we read books to entertain ourselves, and we watch movies or Netflix or whatever to entertain ourselves. And when it comes to a book or a movie, we don't rush to the end to sort of read the last chapter of the book. We're along for the ride, and we enjoy all the sort of ups and downs and the intrigues. And the same with a movie. We don't watch the last 15 minutes and go, now I know how it's going to end. I can watch this. But as humans, we often resist that. We often resist being on that ride. We want to hang on to what we know, and change can sometimes be very disturbing for us.
There's something about, well, I think what it comes back to in a way, a lot of people like stability.
Yeah.
And it's when it's the same and predictable, then it's kind of the same. And I mean, a society set up that way where people go and work in the same job. I mean, traditionally, this is not so much now, but traditionally it was kind of you go in the same job, 5 days a week, 9 to 5 every day for 40 years, and you go watch when you retire. That was kind of the old model, and this was my dad's model paradigm. And that sense of that consistency, predictability, sameness was almost expected. And the funny thing is, and this is the thing I've been sitting since you started talking about this, is that reality is the only constant is change, because everything does change. I mean, especially people, we grow, we age, we mature, we get to a point where we leave the planet. So our journey is never going to be never change. It's constantly about change, because that's who we are. Yet we seem to put this like we want to seal our relationship in amber, so it never changes. That whole or sort of thing.
Oh, actually, I'm going to contradict you on that one.
Please go ahead.
This is what we do best.
Yes.
Yes, I mean, I think a lot of my clients, because I work with a lot of people that are sort of in narcissistic relationships, and not exclusively, but a lot of them, and they want change. They're hanging in for dear life. They want the partner to change, but they don't want to change their relationship. They fear leaving and moving on, so they want to stay in that, know what they've got. It's like the better the devil they know than the devil they don't. But that devil better well damn change, because I'm not happy with the way it is right now. So it's funny, we do.
Well, the thing I want to put back on a different angle on this one from working with my clients, oftentimes is they are complaining about their past relationship because their partner did change. So basically we're saying, the bottom line is we all experience different variations of this. But one thing I'm very aware of is oftentimes, and this is something I know I carried myself when I was younger, definitely, which is one of my stumbling blocks, is when I got into a relationship with a girl. It was so clear that's like, okay, it's like take a snapshot picture. That's the way she is now, and she should never change from that, because otherwise it's going to get worse. And I think some people sort of carry that belief inside themselves, the fairy tale, when they meet that certain person in the beginning, and it's all wonderful, romantic, and it's so perfect and is going so great, they don't want it to go downhill. So they want to say, stay the same, don't change, keep it the same way as it was. And this funny thing, there was a video, a fun video was online months ago, where it's like basically the people on the first date and they're so perfect at the date. And, she's got a little small salad and he's eating very daintily, very, very, very clean, and they're very dressed very nicely, makeup and everything's perfect. 6 weeks further into the relationship, they're both sitting on the couch wearing sweats eating pizza. And it's like that sort of transition time. So as much as we so say, or we may put lip service the idea that I will keep you the way you are, we sort of have to give up the fact we're not going to keep the same way. So I understand your point talking about people in relationships that are traumatic, for want of a better word, and they want to change the relationship so they feel better. But I'm saying a lot of times about people who basically get upset relationship because it did change too much, and they were looking back for what it was when they first fell in love, sort of thing. So there's the fairy tale side of it as well.
Yeah, that's great. I love that you bring that up. And you know what? There's a third one as well, which
I'm
is
sure.
which they didn't change. You were just projecting so much on them in the beginning that you didn't even really see the real person.
Ooh, that's a good one. Yes, indeed. Oh yeah,
Exactly. So,
been there, done that myself.
the signs were there. I mean, I know that in my difficult, very difficult relationship, oh my God, the signs were there from the very first day I met them. But
Hmm.
I chose to overlook it, and I chose to just focus on the things that I liked.
Yeah,
And that's that's equally as dangerous when we play that game of selectively seeing what we want to see, what fits in our picture of that fantasy or whatever it is, and ignoring the red flags that are just there from the
yeah.
very, very beginning.
That is the challenge when you do make up the fantasy and overlay on the reality what you think it should be or hope it to be.
Mhm.
That's a dangerous place to play as well, unfortunately. But yeah, that's definitely a good example of the third one. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go into each one of those. So let's start with you, Barry. So let's talk more about that. Now, well, I also want to broaden out just a little more than just in how we view each other in relationships. Sometimes circumstances within our relationship can change drastically as well, which then upsets the sort of status quo of what that relationship looked like. Maybe your partner um, is going through something very sort of tragic, maybe the death of a parent, or maybe losing a job, or something that's really, really had a dramatic change on them. So we want to talk about that as well, about how in general we deal with change and adapt to change and be there for each other during change.
Absolutely. In fact, that's the one of the things I think, in a way, a lot of people, speaking generally, not specifically, choose a relationship without really looking at the depths of what's possible, what can happen in a relationship. Because when um, challenges, for one of it, happen in the relationship, there could be a loss of a job, loss of a parent, loss of a child, even more so. But those things happen where the it's almost kind of like where the true personality gets revealed. Because what happens is a lot of people do wear masks and play surface a lot in daily life as well as in relationships. So when they are faced with something that shatters that image they have, and they're almost brought to their knees in humility, in recognition of the fact that they had to show their true self, that can actually vastly improve the relationship, or it can totally destroy the relationship. Because it
Yeah.
depends on what the other person thought of that person in the first place. And yes, the thing about relationships, and this is one reason you and I do all the work we do, is we value the authenticity and the quality of relationship that allows us to be seen as we really are. So no matter what happens, who we are is still going to be the same. But a lot of times in relationship, people don't show that to each other.
Mhm.
So when they are forced to show their true self, that could be a good thing or it could be a bad thing.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And it can, how we handle adversity, how we handle ourselves when life throws sort of really hard hardball at us, can either, as you say, it reveals an aspect of our personality that we may not have shown before, and some of it good and some of it bad. And
Yeah,
sometimes our partners can, or ourselves, we can look at somebody and say, "Whoa, I did not, you know, realize that this is an aspect of your personality. Is this still a good fit for me?" And I'm not talking about being fickle and just ending something on a whim, but some people handle adversity or change really well. They see it as an opportunity for growth. They see it as an opportunity to see their innate resilience and how well they handle what's being thrown at them. Whereas, say, some other people just completely crumble and go into a depression, which can be very triggering for their partner. So, again, it's not a who's right, who's wrong, but it does bring up a lot when change happens. So, let's talk about the first part, the one that you were talking about, where we do meet each other. We do have our masks on. We have our best foot forward. That first 3 months of a relationship where
Honey,
we the honeymoon phase. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about that and what what you've observed and what you teach in your classes.
in my very, very, very early dating life, my relationships ended pretty early because I didn't have the skills, the tools, and understanding that things were going to change.
Mm,
And the thing is that, yes, we do oftentimes meet somebody, paint a picture of who they are that is somewhat fictional. We see who they are, but then we decorate the bits we don't know about them with our own perception of what we think they should be like. Their voting choices, their way of being with kids, the way they treat animals, the way they treat weddings, all these different things that we don't necessarily see about them initially. And what happens is they start, as we spend time with them, reveal who they are more and more. And if it fits the picture we have, that is great. But for most people, that's not the case. And if we don't adapt our internal picture of who they are with the reality of who they are, that can be somewhat unsettling. It can definitely be jarring. And I know in my case, I didn't know how to deal with it. And I sort of basically shut down. Now, one of the things I want to talk about in this context is that we talked earlier about, when somebody goes through trauma, challenges like going through loss of a parent or job, whatever it is, sometimes the other partner isn't prepared to hold space for that person who's going through that stuff, and they'll bail and run.
hmm Yeah.
That's not about change, it's just about maturity and about emotional availability. But that change can be on say a spectrum of like little things to big things. And it's really the fact is that when our partner shows us something about themselves that isn't what we thought they were going to show us, whether it's good, normally something that's not as good as we thought it was going to be. For example, maybe in bed it doesn't work out so well when the first time we had sex. I mean, it can be as simple as that, or as dramatic as the way they handle their family dynamics. Those things can be very um, repellent to us if we're not able to handle this.
Mm.
And the thing is, it's really up to us I mean, this is the work we talk about, is doing the work inside so we don't have that resistance to one, being adaptable, but two, being present to whatever's going on
Yeah.
at
I
work,
also think that I mean it's I look back at my dating history and I never ever trusted a relationship until we were at least, when I say trusted a relationship, I mean like began to feel like I know this person at least 6 months into it. Because I was so aware of that first 3 months was
Mhm.
just everybody, as I say, putting on their best foot forward, not faking deliberately, but you settle into who you are after that first 3 months. You settle into, okay, um, more of you're more at ease, so more of yourself appears. And that's why when people are like, oh, love at first sight, my soulmate, or anything like that, I'm just like, oh my God, don't. Takes a minimum, I don't even think 6 months. I mean, I think it takes a year to really sort of see somebody and see them how they deal with life. And usually within a year span, you've seen people go through change or challenge of some sort and how they handle it. And so I think that's one thing to really keep in mind. And
Well,
secondly, sorry, you answered what we're going to say.
I was smiling because the thing is, for me, it was always initially going like perfect from the first moment. So 3 months, even if things changed, that's when I would fall out. So your perception might have been so different. I love the variation of that because
Yeah,
you took time to build trust. I've trusted too easily, and then I got burnt.
yeah,
So,
yeah. But I know and it's not even trust. It's more like the awareness that you don't know somebody. You don't know,
right.
and they don't know me. And sometimes I would behave really badly in the beginning just so that they could, just to say, hey, this is the whole me, not just this like people pleaser part of me. And it's like it was almost like I'd behave really badly and be like, okay, do you still like me? Oh, okay, good. I can relax now. You've seen the worst of me.
Absolutely. I love it.
I know, it's so funny
Right.
what we do in relationships. But the other thing I was thinking too, which is I'm thinking about somebody I would work with who was so concerned about the sort of, and this was somebody that was a little bit older, and so it wasn't sort of young, who was very concerned about looks and health and people aging. And I used to think to myself, well, but your looks are changing and your health is changing. And this expectation that their partner stay young, stay fit, stay healthy. And I mean, trust me, I believe in taking care of yourself very much so, and doing the
Yeah.
best you can to honor your body and to be healthy and whatever. But it is inevitable as we age that we are going to change physically. We are going to be a little more wrinkled. We're not going to be white. So, things start to ache, joints start to go a bit. And to not be tolerant of that or expectant of that. And,
Hmm.
and I look at people that, I mean, I think there's some celebrities out there we can look at, and I'll use a female for an example. Um, because I mean, it's not just men, but I think that we see some female women who are a lot older that keep dating men in their 20s. It's this thing of like that they want a certain image or a look, and again, it's that not wanting to change, to
Yeah.
accept change in our partners, that they become, as I say, maybe I don't know. I think men look much better as they get older for some bizarre reason. I just think they do. I think I like wrinkles and white hair. So, but
I think, well, look, actually, just speak to that little point for a second, from a male point of view.
yeah.
I think a lot of times what happens is that the physiology, that's the word, of men and women changes at different rates over time,
Hmm.
meaning that men can, quote, maintain a semblance of the way they look. Yes, things are going to change in some ways. I mean, I had a lot more hair when I was younger. It's gone now. But the thing is, my facial structure hasn't changed that much and my body structure hasn't changed that much. But for women, oftentimes it seems that because of the biology, whatever it is, their bodies do change over time. Not necessarily having kids, but just that evolution of the body through the time, especially as women get older through menopause, it changes their physicality. So I think women face more challenges to be seen as who they are, independent of how they change their looks, because to fight to keep the looking the same is so much work for anybody.
Hmm.
So I think it's women in some ways to do that, because when they're 21, 21 years old in a bikini and tanned and everything's easy, it's hard to do that when you're 40, 45, 50, 60, because the body's changing.
Yeah.
And I think men don't have to be as visible as women are when they're younger.
So that's so interesting. I think having been um, objectified when I was younger, I'll put it that way. It was always very, very important that people not be attracted to how I look physically. That I wanted people to fall in love with me, the real me, my
No,
personality, the essence of who I was, not my physical body. Because I think if you have had sort of any abuse in your childhood or in your teens, that's something that certainly for me was very triggering. So I definitely only wanted men that weren't neurotic about if I gained a couple of pounds here and there. And I certainly, was with a man actually who was a little neurotic, and it wasn't healthy, because what it does is it stresses you out even more, and you end up feeling not loved for who you are, but the way you look. And the other thing that
absolutely.
occurs to me is like, we don't know. I mean, accidents happen. People can lose their looks. People can lose a limb. I mean, is that really going to be, if you truly, genuinely love somebody, going to be a deal breaker?
That's the question, because some people it is a deal breaker.
Yeah.
You know, that's and that's the thing. Yes, it is. You know, being with somebody who, my mum went through motor neuron disease in the last year of her life, which basically is like the nervous system shuts down. Now, bear in mind, my parents, so that's my mother was in her early 80s. It wasn't like she was in her 40s and, that had one life ahead of her. But that shutting down changed her dramatically. She lost so much weight because she wasn't eating. She was doing feeding tubes.
Hmm.
And when I saw her, it was a shock to my system because I hadn't seen her progress through that. I saw her like from totally healthy and then to that stage.
Hmm.
But my dad was with her the whole time. And I could see the way he was with her, how much he still loved and did not waver 1 inch.
Hmm.
Saw in him that one of those. It's like certainly my dad has issues, but that was one of the things I loved about him, was seeing how much he still loved and cared about my mother, no matter how diminished she was and how limited she was and how physically handicapped she was.
Mm.
So that thing about
Lovely.
people, yeah, I mean, I'm grateful for that because I have judgments about the way their relationship was over the years because it was just so codependent and everything else. But at the same time, there were some great gifts in it too. So yes, that was one of those highlights. I didn't think about it until I just said it.
Mm.
But I want to say to answer that piece that when somebody does, when one of the partners had a car accident, stuck in a wheelchair, or like a friend of mine, she broke her ankle and broke two wrists, so her mobility is very limited. I've been taking care of her, helping her out, going, like driving around because she can't drive.
Mhm.
And it's interesting because I've been watching myself, watching her, you know, like being the observer of myself. And when I hadn't seen her in about 6 years, and when I saw her before, I really liked who she was and really, was attracted to her. I still like who she is, not necessarily as attracted as much, because partly because times change and we both have changed physically. But dealing with her in that state, it's a different energy because it's almost like I've shifted from romantic energy to service energy in a way.
Mhm. Yeah.
So in a romantic relationship, when one partner goes through challenges, that's a question they need to ask themselves. Are they able to deal with their partner, love their partner beyond the assumption of they're going to be physically able to do everything all the time, for example?
Exactly. And also want to just say here, there is no judgment. I mean, if you can't handle that change or can't anticipate handling that change, then be honest with yourself. I mean, there's no judgment. Some people, as you say, some people can, some people can't. But just the being honest with yourself and your partner, I think, is really important. If there are, physical challenges and changes like that, and that's dealing
Mhm.
with the physical, but there's also emotional things that can happen. I know that, I mean, even things like addictions. Sometimes you can get into a relationship with somebody and they weren't addicted in the beginning of the relationship, or if they were hiding it really, really well, or it just hadn't fully blown up in its manifestation. And all of a sudden you find yourself in a relationship with somebody that's severely addicted to either dependent on a substance or a behavior that is damaging to the relationship. And again, being honest with yourself and saying, this is not what I signed up for. This is not,
Mhm.
I mean, physical changes as in aging, 100%. We all should at least be that mature that we know that that is inevitable. But like we said,
Right.
if there's a severe accident and somebody is either physically or emotionally empowered by that, and that changes the dynamic of the relationship, or as I say, an addiction becomes full blown once you're in the relationship, or a mental illness, can suddenly sort of again onset later after the initial sort of few years together. That being able to step back and just say, I didn't anticipate this, and I know the whole what is it the for better for worse for I don't
The
know
sickness.
those
Yeah.
marriage vows, through thick or
Oh yeah.
poor, whatever. Um, but I think we do have the right to be honest to say, is this something that I'm willing to have my life be impacted for the rest of my life with this person, or is this something that I need to step away and say I can't take this on anymore?
It is a challenge that we've got to be honest with ourselves, but also honest with our partner. Because
Yes.
yeah, that was the thing I was thinking about too about the wedding vows. Sickness and health, rich for poor, all those different things. I don't know necessarily how seriously some people take those vows
Hmm.
because are they willing to take their partner in sickness when they're not in health, when they lose their job and they're poorer, when they were before when they're richer? It's like we have this, we create that we construct this ideal relationship with our partner that sometimes gets knocked sideways because of what happens to life. And
I
so
think.
having that freedom, yeah. Sorry to you.
No, I was going to say, I think that the basic ones of richer or poorer, I always say to myself, especially if I see that people are getting into relationships with people that have all the trimmings and and that is what's attracting them. We live in California, and my first thing is, hey, we could have an earthquake tomorrow and that Bentley is crushed, that mansion is in rubble. Who do you want to be climbing through the rubble with? Is this somebody that you could truly see yourself with having to deal with a disaster? Have
Hmm.
all those nice things, no nice restaurants to go to, no fancy cars to drive, no big house to, who do you want by your side as you're trying to rebuild, and who is going to be with you, protect you? Who do you enjoy being with? You know,
Yeah.
who do you actually sort of, they say be on a desert island with nothing, but yeah, and I think that's so important that you ask yourself those questions, really boil it down to the basics.
Hmm.
And how people treat each other. I remember with my boyfriend Hudi, or my partner, I should say, after all these years together. But when I first met him, I went to work with for him rather. After about 6 months, maybe 8 months together, and it was such a wonderful experience because I got to see him. He was co-executive producer of a production office, but I got to see him under stress. I got to see how he treated other people, how he managed, everybody, and I had such respect for him, and I saw who he really was. So that was wonderful for me.
Yeah.
Whereas with one of my exes, we worked together, and I remember saying, "Oh my God, if this relationship has a chance of surviving, I can't work with him," because how he treated people was so abhorrent as far as I was concerned, so disrespectful, so rude, so demeaning, that I just went, "I got to be in denial. I don't want to see this side of him." So I mean, I'm just saying that you can learn a lot from somebody by seeing how they are in their work environment, in life, how they treat other people, not just you, because they might be love bombing you and just making you feel like you're the, princess or whatever. But how do they treat other people? That
Yeah.
will give you a better clue as to who they are.
It's a big piece to learn. Absolutely.
Mhm.
And did we cover the other two as well? I can't remember if we covered all three.
Well, yeah. Well, so we talked about, not well, accepting rather that when we first meet somebody that it is going to change because people are
Yes.
definitely putting their best foot forward and they're on high alert and all of that stuff, and knowing we'll settle down and the real sort of set points will start appearing. But again, as I mentioned, just really know yourself well enough to see if you're projecting on them. Don't go into denial. Look, see everything, and
Yeah.
determine whether, as I say, those red flags are things you can live with, or but don't get into a relationship with somebody going, "Oh, I can change them." Don't
Oh,
ever do that.
oh God. Give me give me goosebumps saying that. Lou, no, thank you.
Oh, so many people do though. They really, it's like
Oh,
they want to
yep.
fix a upper, and it's one of those. Oh, this is a diamond in the rough, and I can spend all my life, polishing this wonderful diamond. And no,
Yeah.
nope. People can change and evolve a, if they are conscious and aware and put the work in. Not saying everybody can't change to a degree, but it has to be something that they want. It's coming from them. But certainly do not go into a relationship trying to change the other person.
No, no, no. You don't want to date a project.
No, absolutely, absolutely not. And the other thing is, as I say, just I think it's really important. With my partner, he lost his house, gosh, in the Wolseley fire. So that was 5 years ago now, and that's pretty devastating when everything you have in life goes up in flames. All your children's, you know, beautiful writings and crafts and photographs and letters that you've had for years, and everything's gone. I mean, I know you can't, it's all stored away in our minds and our memories, which is beautiful and wonderful, but there are some things that are very, very important. In his case, it was his parents were survivors of the Holocaust, and he had his father's striped pajamas. And that was something that was very important to him. And when that went in the fire, that was devastating.
Yeah.
So just knowing that, but again, as I say, his resilience and how he handled that whole situation was remarkable, and something I had a really profound respect for. So it can deepen your love and respect for somebody when they go through these challenging times.
Yeah. I agree.
So, any last words, Barry?
Um, again, reflecting back on Billy Joel's song, don't go changing to try and please me. The thing about it is, it's the other way. It's like change as you change, and there's no pleasing required. It's not to do anything for somebody else. It's just be authentic to yourself. As we said earlier, being as transparent, authentic as we can when we start a relationship, as we mean to go on, is one of the biggest gifts we give our partners. It's just that most people aren't used to that.
Yeah,
So things are going to. I mean, bottom line is not when things change. It's not saying we're not saying if things change. We're saying when things change because they do. We're all changing day by day, our physiology changes, our physicality changes, our emotional awareness changes, our perception of the world changes, as will our partners.
Yeah.
So
It is
be
that
willing
fine
to change.
line. It's that dance between knowing that we change and not being in there waiting for the change. Being
Mm,
being fluid with the natural changes that get that we will naturally go through, but do not invest in, as we say, in the hopes that somebody changes in the direction that you want them to. They will be
that's
changing, but it
true.
might, we don't know where it's
Many
going to change.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right,
There's
so
lots
we
of
are
conversation.
we're through for today, but this is going to lead perfectly into our next show we're going to do, which is about everything that happens to us is for us, not against us.
We're going to get deep.
Yeah, it's going to be great. All right,
Yeah.
well, thank you again, everyone, and we will see you next episode.
Take care of yourselves.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.
We trust you enjoyed this episode and invite you to share this with your friends and loved ones. In fact, please subscribe to our Relationship Mastery podcast. That way you'll get each new episode fresh and shiny as soon as it is released. We'd love to hear from you as well. So go ahead and enter your questions and comments at relationshipmastery.show. Take good care. We will connect with you in our next episode of Relationship Mastery.